What happens when your childhood best friend becomes your partner in one of the biggest shows on television? And then, suddenly, he's gone. This week, Jimmy Kimmel shared heartbreaking news that Cleto Escobedo III, the man behind the saxophone, the laughter, and 2 decades of Jimmy Kimmel Live, has passed away at just 59. To most viewers, he was the cool, unshakable band leader, always ready with a riff. But to Kimmel, he was family. The kid who grew up across the street, who shared in mischief, music, and every late-night laugh that would one day reach millions. And while the headlines call him Kimmel's band leader, the real story runs much deeper. It's about loyalty, music, and the rare kind of friendship that survives fame. But to understand who Cleto really was, you have to start where it all began, in the neon glow of Las Vegas. Long before the bright lights of Hollywood, Cleto Escobedo III was a Vegas kid surrounded by rhythm. Born on August 23, 1966, his earliest memories weren't of toys or cartoons. They were of his father, Cleto Escobedo Jr., on stage, sax in hand, filling the room with sound. Music wasn't just something Cleto heard, it was something he lived. Just a few houses down lived another kid who would change his life forever, a young Jimmy Kimmel. They met as kids, bonded instantly, and in Kimmel's words, became inseparable since I was 9 years old. Their friendship wasn't built on ambition or fame. It was built on pranks, jokes, and that kind of innocent chaos only kids understand. They used to crank call neighbors late at night, order taxis for random people on their street, and stay up watching David Letterman reruns, dreaming about comedy and cameras. Nobody could have guessed that those late-night laughs would one day turn into a real-life late-night show. In those early years, Cleto's father became his hero. He watched him perform in clubs across town, even once flying to Hawaii to see him play, and he'd get teary-eyed just seeing him up there. That spark never went away. By the time Cleto was a teenager, he wasn't just following in his dad's footsteps. He was sprinting ahead, but the world outside Las Vegas was waiting. And soon, Cleto's talent would take him far beyond the desert lights. And what happened next, the narrator's voice might lower slightly, would set him on a path that would eventually lead straight to late-night television. By the time Cleto hit his early 20s, everyone around him knew he wasn't just another Vegas musician. He was the guy other players called when they needed magic in the horn section. He studied music at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, but the classroom could only hold him for so long. The real education was happening on stage, night after night, under the glow of casino lights where Showtime never slept. Vegas was wild, unpredictable, and full of opportunity. One night you could be playing for tourists at a lounge, and the next you'd be sharing a stage with legends. Cleto thrived in that chaos. He wasn't loud or flashy off stage, but once he lifted that sax, he owned the room. Then came the call that changed everything. In 1990, pop superstar Paula Abdul was putting together a new touring band, and Cleto landed an audition. One performance, one song, and that was all it took. He was in. That gig took him across the world, to arenas packed with tens of thousands of screaming fans. It wasn't just a paycheck, it was validation. The kid from Vegas, who grew up watching his dad play, was now part of a global tour, playing for crowds most musicians only dream about. From there, doors opened fast. He worked with Luis Miguel, Mark Anthony, and other major artists, moving between pop, jazz, and Latin stages with ease. Every tour was a new adventure, and every night he proved himself again. But fame on the road came with a price. The travel, the distance, the constant grind, it started wearing him down. Deep down, Cleto missed home, missed familiarity, missed that old feeling of playing just for the joy of it, and that's when the phone rang. On the other end was his oldest friend, Jimmy Kimmel, and with an offer that would change both of their lives forever. Because what Jimmy was about to propose wasn't just a gig, it was a reunion. 2 childhood friends bringing their dreams full circle. When Jimmy Kimmel got the green light for his own late-night show in 2003, he didn't hesitate for a second. Before he even had a set, a logo, or an audience, he knew who he wanted leading the band. He picked up the phone and said, "Cleto, I'm getting a show, and I want you with me." At first, Cleto thought he was joking. After all, this was Jimmy, the guy who used to prank call half the neighborhood. But this time, it was real. Kimmel's dream was finally happening, and he wanted his best friend by his side live on national TV. When ABC executives hesitated, Jimmy went to bat for him. He took the network brass to see Cleto and his band perform live, and by the end of the night, they were sold. They didn't just see a saxophonist, they saw charisma, precision, and the kind of musical chemistry that only comes from decades of friendship. And so, Cleto and the Cletones were born. the heartbeat of Jimmy Kimmel Live since day one. For over 20 years, Cleto's smooth sax lines opened the show, played through every commercial break, and closed each night with the same cool confidence that made him unforgettable. But beyond the lights, there was something even more special. The friendship that started in a Las Vegas neighborhood had now become part of American television history. Night after night, Cleto and Jimmy shared jokes, glances, and moments that fans could feel were real. Not scripted, not forced, just genuine connection. And for Cleto, this wasn't just another gig, it was home. It was a full circle moment. Two kids who once dreamed in front of the TV, now on the TV, living the kind of dream that almost never happens. But there was one more twist to come, because this show wasn't just about Jimmy and Cleto anymore. Soon, another member of the Escobedo family would join the late night legacy. When Jimmy Kimmel Live first hit the air, Cleto was already living a dream, playing music, cracking jokes, and doing it all beside his lifelong friend. But soon, that dream got even better, because not long after the show began, Jimmy made another suggestion. One that turned Cleto and the Cletones into something truly one of a kind. He asked Cleto, "Why don't we bring your dad into the band?" And just like that, the father-son duo took the stage together every night, beaming under studio lights. Cleto Escobedo Jr., the man who'd once inspired his son to pick up a sax, was now standing right next to him, performing for millions. For Cleto, it wasn't just a proud moment, it was a full-circle miracle. The same man who taught him rhythm and stage presence was now part of his success story. As his dad once put it, "I'm playing music with my son on a show with my other son." There was warmth in that line, and truth. Because by then, Jimmy Kimmel wasn't just a co-worker, he was family. But even with all the laughter and music, the grind of late night TV wasn't easy. Every weekday meant long rehearsals, quick changes, and the pressure to keep things fresh in front of a live audience. Yet Cleto never complained. He was the calm center of the chaos. Always cool, always steady, always ready to make the band sound perfect. And behind the scenes, he was known for his kindness. No ego, no attitude, just a guy who made everyone around him better. Whether it was a young musician joining the crew or a nervous celebrity guest, Cleto had a way of making the room feel lighter. Still, even in the best jobs, time has its own rhythm. 2 decades of nightly shows, endless laughter, and memories. And then, one day, everything stopped. Because after 20 years of music, friendship, and late night magic, the unthinkable happened. On a quiet Tuesday morning, the news broke. Cleto Escobedo III was gone. He was just 59 years old. For millions of fans, it felt like losing someone who'd always been there. That familiar face behind the music, the easy smile after every punchline. But for Jimmy Kimmel, it was something far deeper. He took to Instagram, his words raw and heavy. "Cleto and I have been inseparable since I was 9 years old. The fact that we got to work together every day is a dream neither of us could have ever imagined." It wasn't just a tribute, it was heartbreak written in real time. There was no official cause of death released, no details about where or how, only silence. And maybe that's fitting, because for a man who'd spent his life filling the air with sound, this quiet moment said everything. Behind the cameras, the Jimmy Kimmel Live team was crushed. The crew postponed upcoming episodes, including one that had been scheduled that very night. Everyone who'd worked with Cleto, from the musicians to the guests, described him the same way: humble, generous, funny, and loyal. Fans began posting old clips online, Cleto laughing mid-song, joking with Jimmy, leading the Cletones with effortless cool. Each clip now carried a different weight, not just a performance, but a memory frozen in time. And for Kimmel, there was no replacing him. You could tell by the way he spoke, the way he paused between words, that this wasn't just the loss of a colleague, it was the loss of a brother. Because for over 50 years, through every stage of their lives, from prank calls to prime time, they had been side by side. But even though Cleto's sax has fallen silent, his sound and his spirit still echo every night that theme song plays. And what came next wasn't just remembrance, it was legacy. In a world where fame fades fast, Cleto Escobedo III did something rare. He stayed 2 decades on the same stage with the same friend, making the same audience smile night after night. That's not just a career, that's loyalty in its purest form. Every late night fan knew his face, but not everyone knew his story. The years of hard work before the spotlight, the quiet strength behind Jimmy's jokes, and the heart that held that entire band together. Cleto didn't need to chase attention. The music spoke for him. He turned a childhood dream into a lifelong friendship, one that played out out in front of millions, but stayed grounded in something beautifully simple: love for the craft and love for the people around him. His father, Cleto Escobedo Jr., once said, "I'm in seventh heaven every night. I'm playing music with my son on a show with my other son." And that line, that warmth, perfectly captures what Cleto stood for. Family, friendship, music, that was his legacy. In an era where everyone wants to go viral, Cleto proved that the most powerful kind of fame comes from showing up, day after day, year after year, giving people joy without ever demanding the spotlight. When Jimmy Kimmel paid tribute on the show, you could see it in his eyes. This wasn't just the end of an era, it was the loss of a piece of his own story. Because behind every great host, there's someone keeping the rhythm steady. For Kimmel, that rhythm was Cleto, and even though the stage lights will dim and the laughter will fade into reruns, there's one thing that will never disappear: the sound of that saxophone, smooth and soulful, echoing through the history of late night television. So the next time you hear the Jimmy Kimmel Live theme play, listen closely. Behind those notes is a friendship that lasted a lifetime, and a reminder that sometimes the greatest stories don't happen in the spotlight. They happen just a few feet behind it. Cleto Escobedo III wasn't just a band leader. He was the heartbeat of a friendship that survived childhood, fame, and the test of time. From the dusty streets of Las Vegas to the bright lights of Hollywood, his story reminds us that the greatest successes don't always come from talent alone. They come from loyalty, love, and staying true to the people who believed in you from the start. For Jimmy Kimmel, this wasn't just losing a friend, it was losing the other half of a dream. And for everyone who tuned in night after night, Cleto wasn't just background music, he was part of the experience. That smile, that sound, that steady presence that made everything feel easy. It's strange how we can grow attached to people we've never met, how someone on a TV screen can quietly become part of our lives. But that's what Cleto did. Without ever trying to be the star, he became unforgettable. So tonight, when the laughter fades and the credits roll, take a second to think about your own Cleto, the person who's always been there, who lifts you up, who keeps the rhythm steady when life gets messy. Because in the end, that's what makes a life legendary. If you found this story moving, take a moment to drop a love in the comments for Cleto and share your favorite Jimmy Kimmel Live memories below. And if you love stories that celebrate the people behind the spotlight, hit subscribe, because there are more untold stories worth remembering. Rest easy, Cleto. Your music and your friendship will never fade.